I really do love you, Lisa. I always will. And I'm like,
I knew from the beginning.
Oh my goodness.
Shawn,
Like,
you're making everyone look terrible right
Well,
now.
I mean, that was the most
No, it's a good
amazing
thing.
gift I have ever gotten.
That was.
That's awesome.
I knew right away. I really, even that
Yeah, I
10
did
weeks,
too.
I knew that she was the one I wanted to marry.
What's going on, everybody? Today we have a very special episode where we talk to Shawn and Lisa Tellone, one of the most anointed and beautiful couples that have so much wisdom, but we talk about communication in a marriage, what keeps the fire going through the years, and then also how do you get your spouse to start praying with you, start reading the Bible with you. It's going to be a great episode. Check it out.
Hey, well, welcome to the conversation today on the Fully Dedicated podcast. Today, we have some incredible guests on with us. In this message, or in this podcast, we're going to be talking all about marriage. Something that me and Marcelo are super passionate about because we're married.
That's right.
And we might be having these guests on just because we need a little wisdom.
Yeah, this is our personal counseling session.
Yeah. So today on our podcast, we have Lisa and Shawn Tellone. These are some incredible people that you're going to get to hear from them in just a moment about their background. But one of the biggest things that I love about them is, first and foremost, they've been a part of our church for probably 30 years. They're super, super faithful, some of the kindest people that you've ever met, but they have a passion for mentoring young married couples. They've been doing premarital classes at the church for years and years and years. They actually did Marcelo's and Danica's.
That would be like our celebrity name if we Marcelica.
Marcelica.
Like our names together. Marcelo and Danica.
So one of the things that, just kind of like kicking it off, having fun, what do you remember about Danica and Marcelo's? Like when you did their premarital, were you like, there's not a chance? I don't know.
No.
So, like, what were your thoughts about that?
No, actually, they were so young. And when we saw them, I was like, oh my goodness, they're like little kids. Of course.
We literally were. I was 18 years old, and
Yeah.
she was 19 years old, for those of y'all at home.
So what I loved about you guys is that you were totally like, we are here because we want to learn. We want to have the best relationship ever. Like we need those stepping stones to get us there. And it was so much fun watching you guys because you're as cute as could be. And then
cute.
you're cute and you
Thank
still
you.
are.
Thank
See?
you.
Hey, you know,
There you go.
it's
Can't
funny
believe
because a lot of people in that time, because they got married so young, they were like, that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
It's a shotgun wedding.
There's a lot of rumors going around.
A lot of rumors floating around,
Really?
and I was the one that stood up for you
He had our back,
when others didn't.
the only one. I appreciate
did.
that.
So really grateful for that. But so give us a little bit of your background of like with premarital counseling and just kind of like your marriage experience, your background, where you guys met, all that stuff.
You start where we met.
Okay, well, I was a missionary kid, and my parents decided to come to Florida to live instead of going to Wisconsin, where they're from. And so I had just graduated. I lived 8 years over in Papua New Guinea.
Wow.
My dad was a bush pilot over there.
Wow.
Anyways, I was going to be going to college. I took a year off after high school because I was trying to get acclimated back into the United States, and it was kind of a culture shock to do so. So. But we met at a place called Single Purpose, not unlike what we have here at church, young adults.
Yeah.
And I spotted this guy. He was tall, skinny, redhead, longer hair. He had red hair too. And I was like, I'm coming back. I'm going to come back just because I saw this guy from a distance. Didn't meet him. Anyways, at one point, 3 weeks later, I didn't know he was a basketball player. But he had games in between, and then he came up to me and met me, and then the rest is pretty much history. We met, and then 10 weeks later, I went to college in Missouri. So that's the beginning of our engagement, or not engagement, our relationship was we had 10 weeks of getting to know each other, and then I was gone.
Wow.
But we really got to know each other
That's
with
incredible.
Through letters.
letters. He
Oh,
wrote
good
me like
old-fashioned
all the
letters.
time
Yeah.
in Missouri.
That's romantic.
It is.
It was.
Do you guys
You
still
know-
have those letters?
I do. I have a
Yeah,
whole
she's
bunch of
got a
those
lot of them.
letters.
Wow.
Yes. And actually, we met at a time when I was going through a hard time because my parents were like having terrible marriage problems after the mission field. So one of the first things he gave me was this card, and it said, I don't know who holds tomorrow, but I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow. And that meant so much to me. I have that still. And the first gift he gave me just a few weeks in, when it was my birthday, my 19th birthday, he made me a Bible, and he underlined he highlighted all his favorite scriptures. And next to 1 Corinthians, he put, I really do love you, Lisa. I always will. And I'm like,
I knew from the beginning.
Goodness,
Shawn,
like he
you're
knew.
making everyone look terrible right
Well,
now.
I mean, that was the most
No, it's a good
amazing
thing.
gift I have
Yeah,
ever gotten.
that was.
That's awesome.
I knew right away. I really, even that
Yeah, I
10
did
weeks,
too.
I knew that she was the one I wanted to marry.
So you guys met. There was this, some level of infatuation. You saw the long red hair, and you're like, this guy's jacked too. So he's great.
He wasn't
Handsome.
really jacked.
No,
He
I
was not
wasn't.
jacked. He was skinny.
But so, what was the thing for you where you're like, okay, I believe that this is the one? What was like that green flag for you guys individually when looking for somebody? What's that one green flag that you guys saw?
Man, I was obviously very attracted, but I was so attracted to her innocent, beautiful spirit and her love for the Lord at the time. And man, we just would stay up talking for hours and hours, just curious about getting to know each other. And man, it was all those things that just were one green flag after the other, really.
Yeah, so it's funny because y'all's story is a little bit similar to Danica and I's too, because we met at our young adult group for the first time, and the way she says is really funny, but I was tall, skinny, leaned up against a wall, and she was, the rest was history from there. But what she said, other than just like, oh, okay, he looked good, was what stuck out to her about me was that during the discussion time, I mentioned a Bible verse or something about Jesus, and in her words, I spit fire about Jesus. So she was like, oh, this guy like knows his
That's very
word.
cool.
He loves the Lord. And I think a lot of Christian girls are looking for a Christian man who truly does live for the Lord, who isn't just saying he does or going to young adult group to find a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that. We've seen it in young adults for years.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are there just to find a girlfriend. And I feel like the girls who truly love the Lord and want a good man, they can sniff that out like so easily. So Lisa, tell me just what that's like from a female's perspective of how important it is for a man to love the Lord like Shawn does.
Gosh, was everything. Because honestly, I had come to know the Lord when I was like 5 years old. So it was kind of like a lifetime of, and growing up in the mission field, I was surrounded by it. It was like growing up in church. You're a pastor's kid, I'm a missionary kid, same kind of thing. But when I met Shawn, he had just accepted Christ when he was 16 at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp. He was really, really fired up, and he was so humble and godly, and he really poured into me because I was going through a really rough time. Obviously, when your parents are having issues, and I don't know, he was just he was the sweetest guy I had ever met. He had so much compassion, and then when I met his family, I was like, wow, like they're like just the best family ever. I couldn't have imagined anything better,
Wow.
But
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows his kindness and compassion was shown. And I think that really comes from your faith. We serve a Savior who is kind and compassionate and self-sacrificing and serves other people. And how beneficial is that in a relationship? Because in a relationship, we got to sacrifice every single day.
Yep.
So who wants to be in a relationship with someone who's selfish and self-centered?
and can I just add,
Yeah.
you cannot be fake around your family.
Yeah.
And I saw him in his family, and they just how he was, the dynamic of the family was amazing. So like he's not going to fake it, you can't fake it till you make it.
It's true.
Yeah.
One of the first things that Anna told me after like a year of us dating, I was like, how did you know that I was the one? We're fishing for those compliments. I'm like, I need some words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And she's like, I knew you were the one after about 6 months because I saw over 6 months how you treated your mom and your sisters, and how you respect them, and how you never raised your voice. You're always loving. You went out of your way for them, and I knew if you treated them that way, you would treat me even better.
So true.
So
Yeah.
how we
Absolutely.
converse with our family and our parents and our siblings is crucial.
Yeah, I want to kind of hit on that a little bit because I know there's a lot of people watching right now who maybe you're in a relationship or they're looking for a relationship and they may not know exactly what they're looking for. So kind of the Gen Z phrase for it is like red flags. So from y'all's opinion, being premarital, running the premarital class for so long, you've seen a lot of engaged couples, you've seen a lot of people dating, you've seen a lot of people work, and I'm sure you've seen some people that haven't worked out. What are some red flags that someone should be looking for in a potential partner that may be signaling this is not the right person for them?
You know, sometimes in the pre-married class, we don't necessarily see these red flags just in the classroom setting, but a lot of couples will come and confide in us and talk to us afterwards and ask for maybe for prayer or guidance. And I think a lot of them are, we call them in the SYMBIS assessment, they call them caution flags. A lot of it has to do with your past, your baggage. There's this myth in marriage that thinks that everything bad in my life is going to go away as soon as I get married. And that's just not, true. You know, there's a lot of times that you really need to work on getting whole yourself. And seek counseling, seek pastoral, counseling and advice and stuff like that. So I think a lot of times they're related to some things, baggage and things in their past.
So how does that baggage kind of rear its head sometimes? Like practically, it's like, man, this person, they're really angry, or maybe they get really sad in seasons. I don't know what to do. What does that kind of manifest itself in a relationship?
Yeah, well, definitely conflict is always one of those things that are going to come out. I think not dealing with things, or maybe not sharing that with the other part. I think a part of it is the not knowing. So that's part of working through it is communicating that to each other. This is what I've been through, and this is how I'm navigating it. And both of them can be there for each other and help that as well.
So you think just having those open lines of communication?
100%. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things. And as a pastor, I do a lot of premarital, like you guys. By the way, theirs is so much better than mine, so much better. But really I do marriage counseling and these other things. But one of the biggest things that almost every time when someone's having an issue in their marriage, it all goes back to communication.
Definitely.
Almost. Whether it's a money issue. Well, we didn't communicate about what we were spending. We didn't communicate about our schedule. We didn't communicate about division of labor. And it all goes back to communication. So if somebody's listening to this and in their marriage, they know that they have weak communication, what are some action steps or some best practices or just some advice that you can give them to really run in the right direction with communicating with their spouse?
There are so many things to say about communication. I have so many different things in my head. One thing I'll say for communication in that area, that every married couple, dating couple should memorize James 1:19. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and therefore slow to anger. So in this area of conflict that happens a lot in communication, I think you have to really, you got to put that verse into action. Time rearranges reaction for things. So, words can be we know the power of life and death are in our words. And sometimes we blot them out way too quickly in those times. So I'm going to say one of the answers to that would be quick to listen, slow to speak, and therefore slow to anger. Watch our words, our hurtful words. We should always be. I'm Lisa's #1 fan. I should always be speaking life and encouragement to her.
Right.
So that's one area. That'll be one thing.
Yeah. What do you think, Lisa?
I think always being vulnerable. I mean, it's hard because when we were first married, it was not so easy, like spiritually and everything. Like we were not comfortable praying in front of each other,
right?
Or even talking about spirituality. And I was kind of like, growing up in the mission field, I was surrounded by Bible all the time.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like looking for, and my dad would always have like Bible study with my siblings and I.
Yeah.
My mom. And so I was kind of like, okay, Shawn's going to be the leader spiritually. But yet we never talked about it, and I kind of craved it. And so I prayed, and I mean, eventually we just kind of like fell into it. We started reading the Bible together. And I know this goes along with communication, because once you open up those doors, wow, it's so amazing what God can do. Like just being open and saying, God, we need you in this relationship, and just starting to pray.
Yeah.
Like, it feels awkward and weird when you're not used to praying out loud, but we did that. And 37 years later, it took a little while, it took a few years. And, but I think just being honest and vulnerable, we went through, of course, early marriage, having really rough times at times because he worked 24 hours at a fire station. So I was with kids, when kids came along, it's like, oh, I'm so like overwhelmed. And then he was also going to nursing school at the same time. Wow. There's a lot going on. And, I chose not to have a career, and we chose for me to be at home with the kids, which
awesome. Thank
God. I love that. I had an awesome life, except for I didn't always have him around, so I might have been a crazy mom at times, because that's a lot. Moms, we have
Where
to
would
give
we be without our crazy moms?
kudos to
That's
moms.
Right. Our praying moms, man.
Yeah, exactly. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's so important with communication is a lot of times it's like, hey, just want to let you know, I need your help here. Okay, cool. And we just kind of leave it at that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important from a communication standpoint is to really get granular with it. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, you want my help cooking. When? What days? Mm-hmm. What time do you want dinner? Mm-hmm. What am I cooking? So it's right. These different things of like, let's get down to the real details.
Yeah.
And not just brush over. Sometimes we have communication from like a high level, like a overarching of here's what's going on, here's how I'm feeling, but like, why do you feel this way?
Yeah.
How can I help you?
Exactly.
And really have that granular communication.
It's so important, man. I know you and Anna, you guys do your family meetings where there's a few things. I think with Ken and Tabatha Clater, right?
Yeah. So Ken and Tabatha Clater are some people that they have a podcast. So if you're looking for really marriage focused stuff, Doing Life with Ken and Tabatha, great podcast.
So good.
And they've been to our church multiple times, and they're great. But we kind of approach it like a business meeting. We have a Google Doc and we have an agenda, and we talk about everything. Our kids, we started off though with how are you doing? Like, how are you really doing? Mm-hmm. And with everything, it's like, how can I help? But then we talk about sex. Let's be honest. What's going on? Because we want this to be good. Absolutely. And we got to be vulnerable, just like you guys are talking about. And then we come with 2 things of what do I need to improve on? Because if you throw a list of 50 at me, I'll be like, well, I'm the worst ever. Come on. You're beating me up. So just come with 2 where it's like, if these 2 things improve, man, I'm going to be so much happier. Yep. Marriage is going to be so much better. And then things that I'm doing well, and division of labor, who's doing what, our schedules and our goals.
So for those of you guys that are driving right now, don't crash your car writing this down. We'll put it in the show notes, Matt. Yeah. Is that cool? So we'll put a little breakdown outline of this so you guys can also take it and use it. Yep. But it's important to get specific on those things, right? 2 nights ago, I don't have a family meeting yet, but I try to ask these questions periodically, which family meeting would probably help. But I asked Danica 2 nights ago, I'm like, what am I doing that you don't like? And just giving her an opportunity to be
how
like,
much time do you have? No, I'm just kidding.
And honestly, what was really funny is she's like, I honestly can't think of anything right now. And I was not expecting that
what
answer.
A blessing.
I'm like, wow, she's gonna tell me a few things. But just giving her that space to say like, hey, this is something that I think we could do better, or something that you may not realize you're doing that is bugging me or rubbing me the wrong way or whatever it may be. But giving that open line of communication is so crucial. And I want to get back to something you said to Lisa about how you were expecting Shawn to be the spiritual leader in the home and do these Bible studies with you and your kids, but it wasn't necessarily communicated to him right away. If someone is watching this right now and they're feeling like the way that you were feeling, we're like, man, I just wish, my husband would pray with us. Or I wish he would go to church with us, or I wish he would do X, Y, or Z. How would you counsel them to go about having that conversation in a healthy way?
Well, first of all, really pray. I really did. I spent so much time. I was going to Bible study here, and I think one of the speakers was talking about that, having a godly home and everything. I'm like, well, I don't want to be the one that's, I just felt like the man, like he should lead, because he is the leader of the family, and he knew he was the leader of the family. But I just prayed about it, and I would say, do that. Don't say, hey, you should be doing that or whatever, because no, but I didn't really approach it like that. I think I was like, I feel like we should, just start reading the Word together or something. I mean, just one or two little like maybe notifications to his mentality, like just throwing it out there, and he ran with it, and we just we just decided to go ahead and do that. Grab hands, pray, and right now it's so amazing. The U version is just the best, and can I just share one of the U versions I think everyone should look at and read. And if you're really like having a struggle, like I don't really know how to go about this. It's called the 12 Marriage Safeguards, and that's by Samuel and Katie Deuth. It's Deuth. Anyways, and maybe that'll be in the notes as well.
Yep, we'll put it in there.
That would be awesome, because literally there's 12 days, and just press play. Listen to the person reading it. If you have a hard time like reading it together, listen to it and talk about it. There is so much, like I have read, I mean, we like to read a lot of books on marriage, John Gottman, amazing.
Oh, he's awesome.
And we've gone through Gary Smalley's stuff, and like just so many different things, because you have to try to just educate yourself. But when we read that one, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I mean, they need to have like a marriage course on that. But the SYMBIS that we do is so amazing. And when you were talking about the different things, like what could we do better or whatever, we do something called sharing with holds, which we teach through the SYMBIS course. That's where we were introduced to it. So it's like a positive thing that you've done. Like, I noticed that you did this, and then all he says is thank you. But then you sandwich it in the middle of it is like, there's something that's been bothering me, and I feel like you're not really understanding that I want the dirty dishes to be put in the dishwasher after you're done with them. Something that's kind of silly, but
negative withhold.
Yeah, you put a negative withhold, and then you put the other side as a positive. So you have two positives and a positive, and a negative, and it like opens up, and all you can say is thank you. Even if they're saying something on the negative one, you just say thank you. And then you step aside. You both
cry.
do it to each other.
No, I'm just kidding.
He said you storm off and like get mad or whatever. No, you go away from it for 30 minutes or so, and then you can come back to it, because then that time rearranges your thoughts, and it diffuses it. Maybe, I mean, most of the time it's gonna be something silly and little, like you squeeze the toothpaste from the middle of the tube, or it's not that, but there is little things
that's a serious
that can
problem in my
really
household.
bother you.
But that's a good practical step, like your thing that you share with Anna. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'll let you ask but for the SYMBIS, that's called Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts.
Yes.
It's an assessment. I think it's a book too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which they went through with me and my wife, Danica, through our premarital. If you're in the Clearwater area, you can sign up for our premarital class. And
We'd be happy to have you.
Yeah, it'd be great. I think you guys are starting groups again soon.
I might just go through it, and I've been married for a decade.
We've already started 2 nights. We've had 5 new couples.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And
That's
what
amazing.
I love is that so many couples are like, even at the end of the 6 weeks after we meet once a week, they're like, what? Like, where do we go next? What are we going to do? Like, we're going to miss this.
Yeah.
Like, literally,
Release them.
it's so much fun, though, to see, like, at first you're like, oh, no, we've listened to it so many times. I'm like, oh, I hope they're not going to be bored or whatever. No, they're like,
Oh, yeah.
really,
I was locked in, man.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's like one of my heart's desires for not just our church, but the church in general, is it's like, okay, we've got premarital, and then we have some marriage small groups, but I feel like there's this missing gap where it's just an older couple with wisdom, because that's what the Bible talks about, is older people teaching younger people, and old women teaching young women. It's like teaching them in the day-to-day, not just a small group of encouragement, we're doing life together, but just like running alongside of each other.
Yeah.
Mentorship.
Yeah, it's just that
Mentoring,
mentorship. But one of the things that really stood out to me about what you were talking about earlier was how you guys have been married for 37 years. You're great relationship. You're teaching premarital classes on how to have a great, thriving relationship, but you're still learning about it. You're still reading books. You're still investing into this relationship, because you're like, we want to grow. We want to get better. So what are some investments that people can make in their marriage on a day-to-day or monthly basis?
Man, there's so many. I think one of the biggest things, today's world, we are so distracted. We're so busy, and everybody has seasons of life. I get it. But protecting time together, that's probably one of the most important things.
That's huge.
Date night, whatever it looks like for you, but really carving out and being intentional about wanting to thrive in your marriage and learning, like you said. I think those are a couple things.
Yeah. I think, like you said, that the world is so busy now. There's so many distractions where you can just get so caught up in things. One thing, Danica and I just started again, because we have a 1-year-old now, and we just found out that she's pregnant with our second. So that's a big deal. But we're just now getting back to our weekly date nights, and we have the preschool here at the church. He goes there, but we have Fridays off because we work Sunday through Thursday because we're in ministry, right? So most of the time we keep him at our house on Fridays, just because, we love him, we want to be with him. But when we do that, we don't get to necessarily spend time with just us anymore as much as we used to. So last week we brought him to the preschool on that Friday. Her and I went out on a date, got some brunch at a French place over here, had a great time. Like, oh my goodness, like, this is awesome. I just love hanging out with you.
I still like you.
Like, I like you.
This is great.
Awesome.
I want to hear from you, that type of thing. And then from taking that intentional time that at first was hard, it's like, man, we miss our son. We love him, want to be with him. But taking that sacrifice, it turned out to be really good. And it's expanded to other areas. Like even last night, we were sitting, had some dinner, put the baby to sleep, and usually we just throw a TV show on and just kind of hang out together and watch something we both like. But instead, I turn the TV off. I'm like, let's just talk. Tell me about your day. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And we just got to connect. And it was,
That's awesome.
I think it was sparked from taking that date, and it kind of expands from there.
Can I
So,
say something?
Please.
Your best gift you can give to your child is to show that mommy and daddy love each other more than anything. So you investing that time, I know maybe it feels like you're taking away a little bit of time for your son, but man, it's going to pay off amazing. I think that's beautiful.
So a lot of times what I've seen is a lot of times the dads don't necessarily have the guilt. Because I take my kids to school on Friday, and I don't feel any guilt at all. I'm like, Lord, I just want to thank you for this peace that you are providing me. Your yoke is easy. Your burden is light. But for Anna, for a little while, especially when we just had one kid and then turned into two, and we would take the kids to school on a Friday and we're off, it was a big deal. And mom guilt's a real thing. So for a listener who's hearing this and she feels this guilt, I can't leave my baby, whatever it may be. Yes, I love him, but how can they combat that? Or how can you give them a different lens to look through in that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I really feel like because Shawn's my best friend.
Yeah.
And I want him to feel special and I don't want to have a kid-centric home, but I realize there is a lot of mom guilt. Like when you go away or you go on a weekend getaway or whatever, you do feel that. But I think, kids are resilient. It's not like they're gonna, I think you just have to, I don't know, maybe separate yourself from that.
Yeah.
As hard as it is. And we want marriages to work. You want that so bad.
Yeah.
And that's how, throughout the years, yes, we've gone on little getaways and whatever without kids, but a lot of times we took our kids with us too. But it's, it's all about him. I want us to work. I want to have not only open communication and vulnerability, but I want to have fun. We're all about having adventures. And I feel like, our life is a story every single day. We have a new chapter that we can write. Is it going to be like messy and yuck, or is it going to be amazing and adventurous? And it can be something as simple as going to Ringling Museum and walking around the grounds because they're so beautiful. Or you could go on a trip to wherever, Tennessee, see the mountains or whatever. But I know that it's a real hard thing to do. I don't know. There's no cut and dried solution to not feeling mom guilt. I think we probably always will feel mom guilt.
I think part of it, if you look at it like you're investing in your marriage
Yeah.
for your kids' benefit. Because a long time ago, we did Growing Kids God's Way is one of these things.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
but they talked about, and it really stuck with us, the most important thing, and I kind of already said it, for your kids need to know that mommy and daddy love each other. They're safe. That gives them security and that.
Yes.
And then also we're modeling the love of Christ to each other in front of our kids.
Wow.
So I think if they can rethink a little bit of that guilt, like, you know what, I'm investing in a relationship that's going to have more effect on my kids than probably a lot of other things.
And we see that in youth ministry all the time, where so many kids, like when we open up the altar for prayer, it feels like half the kids are coming to us. I'm like, I'm worried that my parents are going to get divorced. All they do is fight.
Wow.
And like it transfers this anxiety to
Absolutely.
them. And they feel the lack of stability. One of the things that my dad told me when I had kids, he goes, kids are great. The best thing that he's like, it's great. And I agree, man. Having 3 little girls is amazing. It's like the highlight of my life. But he told me, he's like, Andrew, one day those kids leave. They grow up. And who's in the house with you? Her.
That's right.
And if you haven't deposited into this, it's like trying to withdraw from an ATM you've never put money into. You're broke. You go bankrupt. So it's like you have to make investments, because one day they leave. And this is where we see a lot of people get divorced, is when their kids go 18 years old, they go off to college, and then they get divorced.
Yeah.
So it's really playing the long game, where it's like, my kids get me 6 nights a week. Every single week, you're getting 85% of it. Mommy is going to get one night, and she's going to get my attention. We're going to have fun. We're going to make memories, and I'm going to deposit this for the now, but also for the future.
Yeah, that's good.
That is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say just what you said. It's like we're together regardless, and these kids are gonna get married one day, and they're gonna start their own families, and we've got to still be good, together. So
for sure.
that's a great reminder to kind of look at it that way. And like you said, man, this is the most important thing. It's prioritizing it the way that God has it. God first, then your spouse, then your kids.
Yeah.
And that's how God intended it, because they need both parents in that house, man.
Yeah.
They do.
You look at the statistics of fatherless homes and the rate of incarceration in kids that don't have a father in the home. It's scary.
Yeah.
So imagine if we took more time focusing on, how's my spouse doing, as opposed to, oh, I just really want to spend time with my kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's good.
So one of the things I always ask people who've been married a long time, it's the same question over again, and I want to ask you this: is the best marriage advice that you can give somebody? It's someone who's like, I just want to learn, I just want to know. What is the best marriage advice that you can give them?
I love what you have to say.
You know what's funny? I prayed about this for a long time because, again, we always joke, but I'm not really joking that we've been honeymooning for 37 years.
It seems
And
like that. Just so you guys
I
know.
believe
We
that.
have-
But people will ask, well, what's the secret? And I would say, communication. There's so many facets to it.
Sure.
But I prayed, Lord, show me something really deep and profound. And actually, you already said it today, Marcelo.
Really?
And it's Philippians 2:3. We've read it a million times, but read it in the context of marriage. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in everything consider Lisa better than myself, and basically her needs above mine.
Wow.
So the word, the secret, it's selflessness. If you think of everything negative in a relationship, it's selfish. I want this. How can I do this? But selflessness, if we truly, I know it's an easy word to think, oh yeah, that's easy. But if we put it really into action, Lisa, how can I serve you today? How can I improve your life, make you better? You know, what can I do for you today? That's truly agape, self-sacrificial, other-oriented love. And that's how God intended us to be. So I think the biggest marriage advice, I share at every class, and I try to make it big and dramatic, but it's really selflessness.
Wow.
It's about the other. For me, it's all about the girl. It's all about Lisa. That's not easy to live out all the time for everybody, but man, if that was always my heart, how much more contagious for her can that be, and how much can that make her feel?
And that's
special?
one of the things that when we talk about with people who are struggling, that's one of the big things I say is like, it's about how selfless you're going to be. And so I guess how I paint the picture is like, when you're being rude to her, when you are being selfish to her, when you are whatever it may be, you're actually doing it to yourself because you're one flesh.
Yeah.
So when you're putting her down or you're putting him down or you're not taking their opinion into account, you're actually hurting yourself because you're one flesh now.
Absolutely.
So when you actually are being selfless, there's a piece of it where you're doing it for yourself.
It's coming back to you.
It
That shouldn't be the
comes back to you.
motivation.
No, and
Absolutely.
that's not. But to me, it's like
I agree.
I'm doing this, and there's going to be a harvest in this.
Absolutely.
And it's going to pay dividends. What about you, Lisa? What's like your big marriage advice?
Well, first of all, can I brag that Shawn really does, like, every day is like, what can I do to serve you today? He says that every.
Can't brag about that.
I can brag about that. I think that's amazing. And I also want to just say, back in the day when we were first married, I had a lot of problems of not, like, I refused to say I'm sorry. I was just not a person that wanted to say I'm sorry because I didn't want to think that I was wrong,
She gave
right?
me the silent treatment.
I know, I'd give him the silent treatment. That was not
No
good.
one's ever done that.
Um,
All right.
But, and also he shares this in class, and this is true. He's like, why would anyone take a bullet for their wife? He's like, who would take a bullet for their wife? And people would raise their hand. Almost everyone usually raises their hand.
All the guys.
Once in a
raise
while,
Except
there's a
that
guy
one
that doesn't
guy.
raise his hand.
They
That's
didn't
a
end
red
up great,
flag. There
so.
you go.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
But he's like, but he really did determine this when we were first married, and he was gonna take a bullet to his pride and always be the one that says he's sorry first. Well, how could I, knowing that I'm like maybe more in the wrong, because I just was always refusing to say I'm sorry. He would say, I'm sorry for whatever it is, I'm sorry. And I would be like, it would come out then. You're like, well, I'm sorry too. Really, it was my bad. It has to come out because you can't, like, it was just so like pure and sweet. And I mean, to me, that is like so amazing that he would actually do that. And he's lived it out all these years.
Well, I'll say I don't like conflict. That's probably part of it. But guys, I would challenge every one of you. Who cares?
Yeah.
Be the one. Make that decision. You're always going to be the one to make peace. Say you're sorry. I tell you, you're gonna reap a harvest from it in your relationship. So
that's so good. As we talk, I'm just remembering all the things that we talked about in that premarital class, and these have all stuck with me. Because one thing, and Danica says this all the time, is like Marcelo always says he's sorry first.
Really?
And I forgot where I got that from, and now I'm thinking back, like, oh, that was you.
I think I might have
we
said that
talked
in that
about
class.
that in our premarital
I
class.
said
that.
So it
That
just
is
goes
funny.
to show how important it is for couples to receive mentorship, discipleship, counseling. And I think, I don't care how long people have been married, it's great to get counseling and get a refresher.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And just to kind of see how things are, because sometimes there might be things that people have been stuffing down for a while that need to come out. Yeah.
I want to know, Pastor Marcelo, how long have you been married now?
Going on 8 years.
8 years. What is your best marriage advice? Because you learned from the masters.
I did.
So
boy.
I'm trying not
we
to
got them
steal,
on our podcast right now.
trying not to steal theirs because
Yeah,
really
don't.
it's like, I did learn from the best. So I think what you said, Philippians 2:13, was it?
Yeah, Philippians 2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Just not being selfish
Yeah.
and serve her. And we watched a video in that class, and one of the guys said, what I say every day is just love the girl. Love the girl. And that's something that stuck with me.
That sounds like a country song.
It's just
It probably is.
Probably is.
right?
I think
But it's
Timber
something
Girl, Don't
so
Take the Girl.
simple. But in those moments, you're like upset or frustrated or don't know what to do. How am I going to interact with her? Maybe we've been arguing. Just love
Just
the girl.
love the girl.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
that-
great.
Love the girl.
Yeah.
And love the man.
That's it.
That's
love the boy.
right.
Love him back.
That's right.
Need some love too.
He did. We do.
Yes,
We do.
indeed.
So, what about you,
Well,
man?
Oh, you want mine? I think those are the 2-3 biggest things. But one of the things that I have always learned from people like Marilyn and TC, who they were married. Marilyn and
yes.
Babe and TC were married for like 60 years.
Oh,
And
love
I'm like,
them.
best marriage advice. Best marriage advice. And they're like, she looks at me, she laughs and she goes, short-term memory loss. Like just forget about it. Like it's
Yeah.
not a
Don't
big
sweat
deal.
the
Like
small
don't
stuff.
sweat it. Like
Yes.
have forgiveness, give grace,
Yes.
outserve one another. Like have short-term memory loss.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Let's go have some fun.
That's good.
And,
We've had her pop into our class before.
have
And
you?
Yeah.
yes, we have. We used to say,
But
hey, give us some advice.
And I always loved it. She always like, babe, every time I see him, my heart melts. Like she's just so,
Yes.
like he did it for her, like just looking
Yeah.
at him was amazing.
Yeah.
But I also want to say like, I love Shawn and She's like an amazing author. And and a lot of times I'll read like a Devo at the end of each class, just kind of wrap it up.
Yeah.
And the last one that we read was love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
We know that's our church motto.
Yeah.
Love God, love others.
right.
That's what our greatest commandment is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but when I first read this Devo, I was like, this is really amazing because it's talking about my husband is my closest neighbor. Because sometimes familiarity, you kind of like you don't treat people that you're familiar with always the best way. You feel like you can get away with like, hey, stop or what, being like a whiny whatever person that you want to be or dumping on them or whatever. But if I look at Shawn as he's my closest neighbor, I have the power, and this is what she was saying in her devotional in a nutshell. I have the power to affect his whole day.
Yeah.
If I'm in a grumpy, whiny, negative mood, that's going to affect his day at work. Everything he does is going to affect it. I know they have that little saying, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
That's kind of it, but I have that power. That makes me want to be a better wife. I want to help him have a good day wherever he is,
Right.
But I love that because
Yeah.
I'm
I
the
mean
biggest neighbor.
that's what
Exactly.
the greatest commandment is, and he is my closest neighbor.
That's so true.
Happy house, happy spouse.
Yeah, there you go. Happy house, happy
right.
spouse.
That's
I like
it.
that.
Yeah, I think just with a closing thought here on loving our closest neighbor, our spouse, someone we see every day. One of the best quotes I've ever heard was, if you want to know the measure of a man, you ask his wife and kids. There's a lot of guys out there that are very successful in their field, that do great things, that are great professionals. But if when you go home and your wife and your kids, the people closest to you who really are relying on you, don't feel cared for and loved, then it's not worth any of it. So,
Wow.
There's
good.
so much wisdom from today's podcast. I mean, we're gonna need a part 2, 3, and
Oh, boy.
4, and people are gonna be wanting it. And they're gonna be asking for it. So first and foremost, just thank you for being here today and just having this
Thanks for
conversation
having
with
us.
us.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely.
And we pray for future conversations in this room where we can have different parts of this. So I just want to encourage you today, if you're a listener, if there's something in the future that you want us to really nail down on and to have a conversation about, just email us at fullydedicated@countryside.cc. Fullydedicated@countryside.cc. But thank you for being in the conversation today. We love you. Have a good one.